5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to start out with a nod to a guy I used to work with, LB, Lyndon Byers. And this is one of those things, this is one of those situations where I, make it completely about me. But we're going to talk about LB here for a second because he just passed away, 61 or 61, I think. Yeah, he was way too young. And it's important to talk about this guy because he was in this building where we worked in 20 Guest Street in Boston. He was a celebrity, more than other people. I mean, not more than all other people. In radio world, they were celebrities, but LB had been a Boston Bruin and a bruiser and a known commodity. And then he was the sports guy, the third chair kind of on the WAAF morning show. So, he'd had already an extraordinary life. And when I got there as the receptionist, which was a very tepid time for me. My mom was sick and my dad was fine. But anyway, I had been a concierge this whole time, which who was it who I told? That means a guy who makes restaurant reservations and gets transportation for people at hotels. So, So this was like even my dad at the time said it seems like a bit late to start a new career, Tom. But I was 31 years old, and so I got in at the front desk at the company because my dream was I used to walk past Intercom, say someday I'm going to work in there. My dream was to get there and then to see if I could do something good and like thrive in there with real radio people and like a lot of you guys. I had been a radio fan forever. So I was walking around a building where I knew all these people were like heroes. Not all of them, some of them. You know, I had been a Dennis and Callahan fan. Mm-hmm. I had been a Howie Carr fan. If it wasn't for Howie and Phoebe, I would not have probably wanted to be into radio. And so anyway, it was a tough time. So when I started, I'm 31 years old. I'm a male receptionist, male M-A-L-E receptionist. That wasn't the job title. That was just the receptionist. And you happened to be of the male persuasion. Which was odd, which is not the normal thing to do. But they couldn't discriminate against you. Well, I was eminently qualified because as a receptionist, you were really good at answering phones. I could facilitate things. I could say please and thank you and have a smile in my voice. I was really qualified. So, but I was nervous. I didn't know anything about radio, anything about how this business works. I was very intimidated. The sales team. By the way, did they give you, when you interviewed for this, sorry, this is a side note, but you made me think of it, saying about this, about, like, you were eminently qualified. Did they, like, give you a hard time when you interviewed for the job about the fact that you were, like, switching careers or doing something different or, like, you know, what made you want to do this kind of question? That's a great question. Because even when I came back after like having had kids and I wanted to get back into my career and I interviewed for jobs that were like somewhat a lower position than what I'd been in, but I had a 7-year resume gap, okay? And like I was just trying to get anything at that point. And I was interviewing and I remember like I was interviewing for an email marketing job specifically, but I'd done all kinds of digital marketing at the previous company that I'd been at. I was like the head of all the things. And the person said, so what makes you want to get into email specifically now when you've done all this other stuff? And I just wanted to be like, nothing. I don't want to specifically do this. Yeah. I'm trying to get any job, any job. But of course, I made something up about how I love email more than other kinds of marketing. And so I really wanted to take a downgrade in my career, actually, because I just am so passionate about friggin' email. Yeah. No. They had, the concerns were this, and this is what how they get burned. The concerns were that I really wanted to be on the air and in radio, in programming, because people do that. They really want to get in, so they'll start hanging out with the street team or this or that, and start with. So
they were worried you were a radio groupie who was just trying to get into radio.
Exactly.
Which you were.
I was. Exactly. But I told them I was not. I got almost browbeat in my second interview by the controller who was my boss. So I worked technically for accounting. And he's like, you just want to meet up with the PDs? I don't want you bothering PDs. I don't want you bothering talent. I don't want you to... And it was really... He was a kind of crazy dude anyway. But... And I said, of course not. I don't even know what PD means. And he said, oh, okay. So I was like, but I didn't know what PD meant, but I knew what I wanted. But anyway, so we had a series of interviews. It was tough.
So you didn't walk in and say, I envision myself working my way up to be the next Howie Carr.
That would not have been good. No, they wanted somebody who could do stuff. And so since I had sent 3 million FedExes in my life as a concierge at a hotel, that was one of the things you do. I spoke FedEx language. I was like a C-3PO. I could speak 1,000 languages of an administrative assistant. They were very pleased with that. I also knew a little bit about radio.
But not enough to make them scared.
Not enough to make them scared, exactly. And the two young ladies who interviewed me were both gorgeous, like 22 years old. But one of the interviews, I thought that was a test.
So but were you like a gender diversity hire?
Probably, or because later on, yeah. These two girls loved the fact that I said that I was that I played in the softball team, which I committed to. I didn't even have a license at the time. I literally, everybody else drove over to the softball field. I ran after they were. It was like, so anyway, I was desperately trying to get into radio. I didn't know anything about it. It was very intimidating. Seeing Howie Carr come through the door, or seeing Glenn Ordway come through the door, and all the big show people, and Jerry Callahan was intimidating as hell. Every single one of them were nice guys, but it's still intimidating. These are like, my whole life was listening to Dennis and Callahan and the Big Show and Howie Carr, and to see these people. VB used to come in, Doug Gowdy used to come in, who was like the reason I was like, oh my, they're all everywhere. All these people. And so I just tried to be super helpful. But one of the guys who was just over the top, and I think that he could see that I was trying really hard to do a job. And when you're the receptionist at this place, there's no like walking through the door next to me, getting to chat with somebody. I'm alone. I am stuck at that little machine gun nest alone there. And so when I saw LB for the first time, first of all, he was a big dude, Lyndon Byers, former Bruin, and he had this walk, the swagger. There was only a few people in the building had this. He had the swagger, which was, I'm not moving for anybody. Like, he owns the hallway. He's walking down the hallway. He used to walk into meetings, and because like a lot of these meetings were catered, and some station somewhere would be having some kind of food somewhere. He would walk right in, grab food, not give a flying bleep. He was doing what he wanted to. But he instantly was really cool to me, extremely nice. Him and Spaz, Anthony Parziali from AF, the AF people were really down to earth. Him and Spaz were awesome. And LB was he was always asking, like, how's it going, T? How are things with T? Everybody treating you right? And look out for these people, T. And he was like always saying, you gotta, and he would go when there would be a food drop somewhere on one of the stations. He'd go, and he knew I was stuck there. He'd grab stuff for me. He had no reason to do this.
It's funny that you say he was huge, because when I worked in a store and I met Johnny Boychuk one time, he sold like Boston sports merchandise. That was the biggest human that I've literally ever seen in person. But also met Tyler Sagan. He was not a big person.
Yeah, they're not all.
But Johnny Boychuk was like the biggest person that I've seen in person, just like sheer mass-wise. Like, I don't know how tall he is or what.
He was also had a wingspan, and he was not moving for anybody. There was 3 people like that. It was LB, Fred Smirlis, and Steve DiOssi. Those 3 guys would walk down the hall, and you were pulling off to the side to let them cover. All great guys, by the way. So anyway, the things that stand out for LB was how incredibly considerate about my happiness he was. There was no reason. There was no reason he needed to be considerate about my happiness, but he was. He was considerate. There'd be a phalanx of AAF hangers-on with him, and And I remember this, he'd do things like walk by me and throw me a T-shirt, that kind of thing. Like, they're checking in. And this is a guy, by the way, who came in the morning having spent all-nighters out. He was a partier, a huge partier, and he was, and, you know, he would come in the morning. Sometimes he'd miss his shift. Sometimes he'd come in. But he was always polite as hell and cool as hell. And always tough one, kid, that kind of thing. Like, but he was great. In disposition, Jerry Callahan has some great tweets about this. Disposition was perfect. And so this one time, and by the way, and he was also, I used to have to mail his, what's that called when you pay an ex-wife?
Alimony?
Yeah. I used to have to FedEx his alimony to his wife in Canada. And he'd come over.
You didn't have to like sign an NDA before you talk about that publicly?
Oh, I don't know. But I had to FedEx it. That was my job. And so he'd come over and still be friendly about the whole thing. And one time I remember him walking past me on the phone, talking to people on the phone, and handing me a bottle of tequila. Just handed it to me. And like he just thought to do these things. The freaking guy was a great guy. So one time for July 4th, right before July 4th, there was everybody's getting ready for the break, and LB asked me. He's surrounded by AAF people. Mm-hmm. Some AAF like Mantown girls, which are kind of the Worcester like racy kind of girls, and all sorts of people around him. And he said, "What are you doing this weekend, T? What do you get going?" I said, "Oh, my brothers were having a roof party."
He called you T?
Called me T. And Spaz called me T-Unit. And so he said, and I said, "Oh, we're having a roof party." He said, "Oh man, give me a call. Why don't you call me this weekend? Call me tomorrow night and let me know where you are, and maybe I can pop by the party, or maybe you can like join us wherever we are." And he made me take his number down, and I called him the next day. It just went to voicemail. Doesn't matter. But he did this in front of people. Mm-hmm. So that people would see that I had
street cred.
I was LB approved. Mm-hmm. And like all unnecessary. And just before we move on, another thing that he was would do. He was such an intimidating guy when he wanted, never to me, but you know he got served summonses all the time, just very often, more than most people. I remember this one guy came over and said, "Yeah, can you page Lyndon Byers, please? I have to serve him with something." And I said, "Oh, sure." And I paged him. And LB comes down to the hall and says, "Mother, are you going to serve me? Are you going to serve me? What? Yeah, you're going to do this?" And he was in the guy's face, and the guy's like, "Oh, no, this is for just like a motor vehicle court date." And he's like, Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I didn't know." So he'd been so used to be having these...
Like serious charges?
Oh, he would get in bar fights and here and there. He committed. When LB went out, he committed. I was only out with him one time ever, but it was everybody in the station. We were doing a food. There used to be something called Taste of Boston on City Hall Plaza, mm-hmm. and all the stations would man food tents and this and that. It was a thing. It was a food exposition by Intercom, and it got rained out. We all got there in the morning. It got rained out. So since the sales had connections, they opened up the Purple Shamrock, and we all went in there in like 8 in the morning. And there were 2 major casualties that day. The first to be put into a cab was Tom Shattuck. It's not my thing. I remember yelling at Pete Shepard about the Red Sox, and then I was poured into a cab. And I think LB had a good one that day too. But one of the best things about this guy that I thought was great about his personality, is that he would come walking over to the front desk, and I had the PA there. I pressed if you pick up the phone and press the certain numbers, then you'd go through every office you'd go through the entire floor, mm-hmm. the PA announcement system. I needed that to announce Cupcake Day, which was the thing that drove me closest to suicide than anything else. But LB a few times would say, come over and say, "Hey T, what's up, kid?" And I'd say, "Not too much, LB." And he'd say, "Can you do me a favor and put me on PA?" And so I'd put the PA thing on, hand him the phone, and he said, "To whatever mother messed up and puked all over the men's bathroom, you're an effing pig. You understand? You're a goddamn effing pig. And if I find you, I will kick the... You understand? You freaking pig! In these tirades. By the way, there are sales. The general manager's meeting with clients, and like it's going everywhere. He doesn't give a flying F. And then he'd cup the phone afterwards and say thanks to you and to hang it up. It's like amazing. The guy is amazing. He was an awesome guy, and I just say it only because he spent time and effort in his life making people who didn't matter feel comfortable. And it was just a cool thing. And it sucks that he's gone. And I'm obviously not the only one, but it just sucks that he's gone. He was a great, just a great. Everybody will say he's a great guy, except for some people in law enforcement or people he got in bar fights with. But everybody will say that. Freaking guy was awesome, awesome. And I just and it just sucks that he's gone. That's what I'm going to say about LB, Lyndon Byers. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. I guess we should start here. Moving along here with. I guess we should not be surprised that when you keep pushing the envelope in an effort to emotionally cope with a reality that makes you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason.
Like that Trump is president? That
exactly.
reality? Okay.
That eventually you lose all sense of boundaries whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So we live with people, with neighbors who love Luigi Mangione because he's a good guy, because health insurance is a pain in the ass, so you got to shoot the CEOs and kill them.
Being a left-wing person is so embarrassing.
Well, right.
I'm sorry.
And so
embarrassing.
We live with people who think that, kids who grew up in nice towns with lots of money, with nice parents, with all sorts of yard signs, who are ripping down posters of Israeli kidnap victims. Mm-hmm. These are the nice people. In other words, we've mass marketed, what's her name? Patty Krenwinkel and Linda Kasabian, the Manson girls.
Yeah. We've
now done this. And so that's why it's not a surprise that when you've got this tragedy in Texas with the flash floods, that there are people on the left who immediately
serious people on the left.
Joy and opportunity. Mm-hmm. And said, here I go. That's great. I can use this because Trump is going to fire the weather people.
Well, and especially Trump's been having a really good couple of weeks.
Oh,
so
yes.
This is upsetting to you if you are on the left. The Sunday shows were going to have to be all about the one big beautiful bill and signing that, which, they still covered the bill and talked about, kicking people off Medicaid or whatever. And some of that stuff. But the left in particular really felt that at Trump's moment of victory where he's signing his bill and it's July the 4th, we're entering the 250th year of America. We're about to have a year-long birthday party, and the left hates America, obviously, so this is like all negative for them. Everything is bad for them.
Yep.
And finally, something from their perspective good happens. Something that they can get excited about and happy, which is that a bunch of children in Texas were swept away by floodwaters. So that, to them, that's what made their 4th of July, made it all worthwhile and happy.
Yep.
They got excited, immediately ran. They took some time out from the family barbecue and eating a hot dog to immediately rush to social media and start posting about how Trump was personally freaking drowning children in Texas. And this just proved everything they've said about Trump all along. Always. They can't let it go. There's not a tragedy that they don't feel the need to immediately jump on. Like absolute psychopaths.
Well, yeah. And I would say leading the pack is Juliette Kayyem.
Juliette Kayyem did this.
Who's supposedly a national security expert.
But your buddy Chris Murphy did it. David Axelrod did it. Like I said, this is supposedly serious people. Ron Filipkowski. I forget. I don't know even how to say his name. He's some idiot. He's the Midas touch guy, I think. That guy, he's a big Dem donor. And I showed you missed it actually when we listened to this week. George Stephanopoulos asked about it. There are people parroting this line that funding cuts at the National Weather Service and the NOAA somehow, and they found some guy in Texas who took an early retirement deal, that funding cuts somehow prevented people from being warned. Now, of course, this is a slur on the great people who work at the National Weather Service.
Of course.
Claiming that they somehow didn't warn people or weren't doing their job, or and of course it being a dangerous weekend and they were doing their jobs and they were all out there. This place was overstaffed. They had 6 people on this weekend when normally they have 2. They were issuing warnings. A lot of these people were in very remote areas out at camps where there's not siren warning systems for this stuff. There's absolutely zero evidence to suggest, and many experts have said this now at this point, there's zero evidence to suggest that any kind of funding cuts played any role in preventing people from being warned in time. The National Weather Service issued all the warnings they're supposed to issue. They got the information out there. This just happened extremely fast. And when I say extremely fast, like the number that keeps getting quoted is that the river rose 26 feet in 45 minutes.
Right. It's amazing.
Which is insane. And, you know, I've read a bunch about this. Janice Dean tweeted a great article about it. I retweeted someone's Substack about it on my Facebook page, on my Twitter also. Somebody who does weather stuff talking about this and saying how it's like kind of insulting to the National Weather Service to say that they didn't warn people, first of all.
Right.
They absolutely did their jobs, and they're fantastic. And one guy taking early retirement did not affect the whole infrastructure of the National Weather Service. It was too good.
Julia Cayenne was
saying, too good. It's disgusting.
This is what happens when you cut government. And then when people said, that's disgusting, like kids are drowning right now, she said, it's disrespectful for us to not ask questions. It's disrespectful to the families. You're just a psychotic, dude. You and everybody else doing this thing right now, excited, Chris Murphy, excited by the fact there's more dead children, so he can go right on social media and say, you see, now do you see? Now you freaking stop doing this and voting for him? Now do you see?
Oh, I mean, there were people who literally tweeted out, like, oh, these people in Texas voted for Trump. Now they're getting what they voted for. Like, excuse me? I'm sorry. The children deserve to drown because their parents voted for Trump. But they just go
we're
out
also
here.
learning that there were significant staffing shortfalls of the National Weather Service's offices in the region.
You know, George, as of right now, the local county officials really didn't want to address that just yet. What they are telling us is they expected between 4 and 6 inches of rain. That is what weather experts told them, the National Weather Service as well. They also knew that in remote locations, they might get anywhere from 8 to 10 inches. But this amount of rain in such a short amount of time, it was very difficult to navigate. And when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary was here just yesterday, she acknowledged this was an issue. She was going to take these concerns to the White House as well and try and see if there was anything they could do to revamp the system. She says the president is committed to it.
Right. So it's going nowhere. They're trying, but I'm not surprised. I mean, the standards are now just simply gone.
Well, right. And, you know, people in the chat saying, you know, Splash says every warning was issued. It's a flash flood because it happens quickly and it happens more and it kills more people every year than all other natural disasters combined. You know, Charlie says that's a huge rise in no time. And there's some debate, like, should we have outdoor warning systems? Apparently, this area is colloquially called Flash Flood Alley, which I had never heard of, but apparently is a thing, because they have flash floods all the time. And the vast majority of them are not this serious. So could there be a more aggressive warning system like tornado sirens that they have in some areas? Like, could they do stuff like that out at these remote camps that these kids are at? Maybe. But would they be issuing warnings and doing sirens and evacuating people, like, and 9 times out of 10 it wouldn't be anything like this? Like, well, maybe. It's just really hard to know that far in advance. And I think it kind of speaks to something. I was talking to you about this earlier, that we forget sometimes because we tend to live in like a very controlled modern environment where we're not in danger of dying most of the time. But for the most part, nature is trying to kill us. We're not, like, civilization is not a case of, back in the day, we used to be in the Garden of Eden and at one with nature and living in peace with Mother Gaia Earth or whatever stupid thing. Like, Mother Earth wants us all dead and is trying to kill us all the time with weather and waves and heat and storms and just mountains. Everything's trying to kill us all the time.
Well, right. But,
everything.
Yes.
And it's only because we're as far advanced as we are that we even have this expectation that we're just not going to die of stuff all the time. But still, sometimes nature proves that when it wants to F you, it still can. And you can have all the warnings and you can have all the stuff. And sometimes you're still just effed because sometimes nature is just bigger in that moment than all our systems and things we have in place can do. And it's a scary thought because it feels very out of control and not something we can do much about.
But I think that's part of it's a psychological thing, an exercise that we feel like if you have the proper signage, that the masses feel comfortable. Like, we live near a nuclear power plant, and there are those big sirens there, and there's some level of comfort. You get a flyer every year that tells you what to do, but we don't know what to do. Like, what do we? By the way, if a bunch of Soviet Scud missiles start hitting the eastern seaboard, I don't know. I mean, nobody. There's nothing, and I think
I do have potassium iodide downstairs.
But that is something that people think they have control because there are measures being taken, and we talked earlier about this. They're it's the same with controlling your aging. I can push back my aging by taking this, and getting this tuck in this college. It's you can't do anything about your aging. It's coming. It's going. You're getting old. You can feel like you're not, but that's another part of nature that's it's encroaching on you. Speaking of it's interesting, Alice, that you say that, because also when we moved in this house, since we've moved in this house, the chipmunks have destroyed this, the rats destroyed that, chipmunks have chewed up one of the sheds that we had. And just it's horrific. When I look at it, I'm just so angry. But we moved in here not respecting nature. We moved in here from Melrose, where nothing messed with us, which is a leafy suburb. We come here, and we have Melrose sensibilities, but we're not in Melrose anymore. We're in the frontier, and we didn't act like it.
The frontier of Massachusetts.
No, when it comes to encroachment in nature.
Oh, by nature, yeah.
Yeah, so
there's
what I should have done,
I had
what I should have done when I moved here, had I known to have the right mindset, is kill everything. Immediately killed every freaking rodent around and everything else, and all this stuff. But I didn't, and only last year was the first time I got the bucket to kill rodents. But we gave them 5 years because we didn't know, and your people aren't ready for stuff. But anyway, bringing it back to what we were saying, here's a guy named Sam Malone. He's got 56,000 followers. He's a pride flag. But this is where the left is now. Republicans. He's got this video of the river rushing through a house. Republicans, your thoughts and prayers for the Texas flooding go just as far as they do after school shootings. Nowhere. You do have the power to change things. All it takes is turning off faux news and stepping into the reality with the rest of us. So, in other words, they absolutely brought this upon themselves by listening to faux news.
Of course. And this concept that you can control nature, you can control weather if you just cede power to the expert class and let them run things.
Oh, right.
Which, of course, has been proven wrong every single time that it's ever tried. But you know what? This time, this will be the time. If you just let Dr. Fauci and Greta Thunberg run America, then floods won't happen anymore, and you'll be able to save all the children. Well, the truth is, contrary to what conspiracy theorists on the left and right think, although the left makes them much more mainstream in their thinking, because they don't think environmentalists are conspiracy theorists, but they agree with conspiracy theorists on the right who think that somehow very smart people can control the weather.
Right.
If they try hard enough. If we all get together and we wish really hard, we can make the weather do things that we want it to do. If everyone's virtuous enough and turns off the lights when we're not using them, we can make the storm gods go away. Like, this is the type of thing that they believe. And it's interesting because, so you remember the Zizians.
Yes.
If you guys listening don't remember the Zizians were this cult. I went down a rabbit hole and got way into them because there was this couple of trans people who shot this Border Patrol agent in Vermont a year or so ago, or whenever this was. And it turns out it was part of this trans rationalist anti-AI cult run by this person called Ziz. And it had come out of this rationalist movement in California run by Eliezer Yudkowsky, who ran this discussion group lesswrong.com, where they all were like trying to figure out how to stop superhuman AI from killing all of humanity once it gets developed. And this person went off the deep end and had a string of like 6 murders with their cult, Ziz, and the rest of his or her followers. So anyway, I was reading, and the New York Times did a big deep dive article into Ziz this weekend, and I read it because I'm fascinated by all of the Ziz stuff. And this one line really, really stuck out to me as I was, going through it, because I was, they actually, went to Eliezer Yudkowsky for comment and this stuff, because this all came as like a spin-off movement of his thing, which obviously he doesn't endorse, like murdering your landlord and your parents and all the other people these guys murdered because they're psychopaths. But he had this quote, which I thought was fascinating, where he said, "A lot of the early rationalists thought it was important to tolerate weird people. A lot of weird people encountered that tolerance and decided that they'd found their new home." He wrote in a message to me, writes the New York Times article writer. "And some of those weird people turned out to be genuinely crazy and in a contagious way among the susceptible." And I thought, what a realization by him. And what a realization not just for the rationalist movement, but what a realization for the left wing in America in general. In general. If you let in crazy people because you decide to tolerate weird, their craziness does not just affect them. There's this belief among all the people who identify as either liberals or classical liberals that, like, if somebody makes weird choices and is a freak and a psychopath, that only really affects them and that can exist in a bubble. We talked about this a little bit the other day when we were talking about the Jessica Rydell thing, and can you compartmentalize crazy? Right. And so what he's saying here is that we in the rationalist movement thought, like, oh, we can just bring anybody into our movement and we'll tolerate weirdness. And of course, these are like Silicon Valley weirdos to start with. So their definition of weird is like probably even weirder than the standard definition of weird. And they're like, we'll tolerate weirdness because, like, who am I to judge and all this stuff. And that's how, Silicon Valley is. They're all like, and these rationalists and stuff, they're all like poly and trans and this and that. Like, we'll tolerate weird. The problem is that weirdness is not compartmentalized. It's mental illness, and he used the word contagious. It's absolutely contagious. It's a mind virus, and you let it into your movement, and it will take over and eat your movement alive.
Right, out of a sense of compassion and, like you said, imminently crazy.
Right, but you can't, and what the left did in this country is they let in the craziest people, the wildest, most extreme trans cult believers. They let in, like, the wackiest anti-colonialist, anti-Zionist, pro-October 7th nut jobs.
Right, to be the next mayor of New York.
They let in all the crazies. They let in the socialists. They let in the radicals and the murderers and everybody. Right? The people who don't know what gender they are, who think there's no such thing as gender. Like, they let in everything. And the problem is that once you treat all of that as legitimate and as a legitimate part of your movement, they think they own your movement as much as you do. And maybe they do. Because, like I say, they're a virus. And what we're watching right now is the entire left wing of American politics has, like, given itself HIV and is, like, slowly wasting away with this because the crazy people are now running the show. And they've, like you brought this up, they push people who maybe weren't going to be that crazy into being more crazy than they would have been. When you let all this into your movement and you have everything being run by lunatics, then it starts to like tip over the edge. Like, in what possible world is Brianna Wu one of like the more sane voices in your political party?
Well, right. And how about the ACLU chick?
Chase Strangio, yeah.
Who's like, is presenting so many insane physical traits immediately, but you're taught to feel guilty about having a danger sense. And so you're disarmed.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if they've, like, purposely disarmed it or what, but, like, yeah, if your political movement includes that dude who worked for the Biden administration who was stealing women's luggage, like, then you've already not only lost the plot, but your movement is headless and has no control over its own future. And, you know, I recognize this because you see it among a lot of weak political parties. It's not unique to the left. You see it, for example, in the Massachusetts Republican Party. The party is so easily led astray by cranks and lunatics and weirdos because they'll take anyone, because they're desperate, because there's just not that many people doing stuff. So psychos show up and agree to run for Congress. And no sane person is offering to run for Congress in Massachusetts as a Republican.
Why not?
Because they'll lose. And they don't want to waste thousands, maybe more dollars and all this time and all this energy on a big waste of time. Right? Like, would you want to?
No.
You've seen what it's like even when I ran for tiny things. How freaking draining it is.
Yes.
Would you want to spend the time to run for Congress and put your family through that? Like, if you knew 100% sure that you were going to lose?
No.
Like, who would ever want to do that? Only absolute psychotic attention whores would want to do that. Like, no, nobody. I mean, who is the person who wants to do that? And I mean, like, my Republican friends in the Republican Party are going to be upset with me for saying this aloud because they're going to think I'm, like, discouraging people from running or something. But, like, this is what I've seen in the Republican Party here, is that it's so susceptible to be taken over by stuff because you let in crazy people.
Right, which is why you beat Scott Brown and go to New Hampshire.
Right, because there you have a shot,
right.
So there, like, the entire calculus of the thing is different, right? Like, it's a completely different situation. When you have an incredibly weak party, it just becomes a vessel for anything that comes along. And it's so disappointing, but that's, like, really what we're watching on the left. And it was so interesting reading this New York Times article about this cult and seeing this person acknowledge this, like, we had this movement and we thought it was nice to, like, tolerate weirdos, but it turns out, like, weirdos can actually ruin everything.
Absolutely.
Like, it can make everything suck. So I don't know. I thought that was very revealing.
I think it's great. It's great. And I don't know if you can revive something because now they've ceded over so much territory. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Well, then you end up in a spiral because it's like when your whole political party is for weirdos and a furry, and, like, who's going to join it now?
Right.
Like, no one will vote for you, and, like, you scare away the least weird weirdo because you tell him he's being transphobic, and then, like, you're left with 3 weirdos and a furry. Like, I don't know. Like, this is how their party works. And to make that point, I will tell you that Jason Kelce got in big trouble this weekend.
Travis Kelce's brother.
Yeah, Taylor Swift's boyfriend's brother.
Right.
He's also a football player, so I hear.
Retired, I think, but yes.
Yes, retired. But he got in big trouble because this weekend he made a very offensive statement about the 4th of July that really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, in which he wrote the following scary, offensive statement. Man, I love the 4th. One of the great days we can all set aside our differences in this country and enjoy the one thing we all share in common. Sorry, a pop-up ad is in my way and I can't read this anymore. It's been made impossible.
And that wasn't received well by some people.
The one thing we all share in common, that we are Americans. Cheers to you, oh beautiful America. So this, of course, upset the left because he said we're all Americans and cheers to America and we can set aside our differences. And
which is not acceptable to the left because this is a state of emergency right now. This is not America right now.
Set aside differences, one commenter wrote. One party wants to feed children, the other wants to feed brown people to alligators. Oof. Being supremely disappointed by Kelsey today was not on my bingo card, another user posted. Love you, Bub, but this is so out of touch. I beg you, please read the room right now. So many are suffering, added another person.
Read the room. Imagine being a read the room person.
Was it on their bingo card?
Oh, I'm so disappointed in the Kelseys. Like, who's got standards for the Kelseys? Like, yeah, but you're right. And that's the whole thing right now is that this is a state of emergency. This is not normal. Put the American flags upside down. We saw them today on the highway.
Yeah, like 6 boomers with their Fire Trump sign and their upside down American flags on the highway overpass. And I was so embarrassed because people on the highway beeped.
Oh, no, I didn't have any people
People near me were beeping. And I was like, oh, you guys are so terrible.
Yeah.
So terrible.
Chat, Albie.
All right, time to head to the chat.
One another. We got to do these earlier. Freaking 9:42. I'm not saying.
We're doing the Patreon show though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad we're doing it, but we couldn't do it early. We couldn't. All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, bro. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Andy in Cambridge, Albie.
All right.
Andy in Cambridge, 5 minutes east of the Phoenix Landing.
Have we sent Andy? Is he going to the thing?
I don't know. I bet he was invited.
Come on, Andy.
Going back at least a week, Gwen Cooper had dark hair. She was the doctor's companion. She was Welsh. The one with the red hair, she was Scottish.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Doctor Who.
Oh, you mentioned Doctor Who?
Yeah. She ate fish fingers with custard. I think that was the girl with the red hair.
What?
Jillian something?
What is happening right now? When did we talk about
Welsh.
Doctor Who? What?
I definitely talked about it.
On the show?
Yes.
We talked about Doctor Who.
Well,
the BBC show in the little police box.
Yes.
I have no memory of this. But the girl who was with Tom Baker, that's my girl.
Okay.
Kind of like Martha Quinn. I was not there for this.
Andy in Cambridge, 5 minutes east of the Phoenix Landing.
Okay.
Going back at least a week, Gwen Cooper had dark hair. She was the doctor's companion. She was Welsh.
Okay.
The one with the red hair, she was Scottish.
Okay.
The actress is Karen Gillan.
Gillan, that's what I was
Her
thinking.
name was on the show was Amy Pond.
Right.
Nobody compete with.
What do you and Andy do a show or something? Because I have nothing to do with this.
Clara, who's the actress's name is Jenna Louise Coleman, and I want her to marry me. I had somewhere else to go with this. I think it's it for now. I might call back. Cheers.
Thanks, Andy. I don't. This. I was not here for this. You and Andy did a show together.
It's not true.
But I
This
did like
happened
the girl
on the
from
show.
Doctor Who in the original Doctor Who.
That's not even the original one.
It's not in the 70s?
There was ones before that.
Okay.
That's not like season 1.
But I will say this. That if you're going to talk sci-fi and sci-fi chicks, my snaggle from Firefly, that's the one. What's her name again?
Jewel State.
Oof. That's living right there. She's it.
Jesus Christ. It's Andy in Cambridge,
Hey,
5
Andy.
minutes east of the Phoenix Landing. Did I really get drunk last night into the Gwen Cooper versus Amy Pond Doctor Who companion thing. Jesus Christ! I'm sorry, guys.
No, Alice loves it.
Just
No, I do. Tom has no
happens.
memory.
I have no memory. Maybe I was
it's
wasted
because it was
during
something I said, so you
Oh, yeah,
probably
check
weren't
out.
listening.
Yeah.
So.
All right, it's Andy in Cambridge again, 5
Hey,
minutes
Andy.
east of the Phoenix Landing. I am not sure that there's anybody else in the burn barrel community.
So this is Andy's second one after the first one. This is before the Call Me Mapa. Could be part of
Mea culpa?
Yes, Mea Culpa. Yeah.
that is
Call
totally
me
gutted
Mopa.
that Diogo Jota died in a car crash yesterday with his brother.
Who did?
Someplace in Spain. But us LFC people, that's Liverpool Football Club people for the
I
rest
was
of
going
you,
to say, I think that's a soccer thing.
It makes sense because you watch that stuff at the Phoenix, probably.
are horrified, just gutted. And
Sorry.
all right, 38. Oh, sorry.
I like all of those messages, Andy. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry he died. I wasn't aware of this. I don't know where this Doctor Who conversation came up with Alice, but she's into it. So,
Hey, Tom and Alice. Tom from Torrington here.
hey, Tom.
Hey, I always end up working long holiday weekends. I own a carpet cleaning company, janitorial service.
There we go.
Alice, you made me laugh while I was listening today, and you said to Tom, it disturbs me that you're upset that sliced mayonnaise is not real. I find that very disturbing.
Yeah.
Thanks for the laugh.
Well, I mean, I would be intrigued by it. This is a big Mayo-centric house and a Mayo-centric holiday as well. So I'd be intrigued by it.
Let me get this straight.
Hey, Tom.
You had an inebriated girl
That's right.
in your bedroom, sitting on your bed.
Yep.
She told you to come over there and kiss her,
Yes.
and you said no because she had a few drinks.
It didn't mean it, though. I know, Tommy. I know.
I don't think I've ever been so disappointed in you in all my life.
I know, Tommy.
30 seconds.
I know, Tommy. And I was in no position to be rejecting offers. And she was beautiful and tipsy, and I was afraid. Oh, it's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing in the world. I cannot believe me. I think about it and think, oh, like my dad knew I drank his wine. He knew that she was staying over in my house. Like, I hope I didn't tell him the truth. It was so, terrible. So I just had to sit there as some cuck next to her with Wonderful Night playing, know that I had a shot. And she remembered that too. Oh, it's awful. That is the most disgusting thing in the world. I'm ashamed of myself. That's not believe me, it took until right around my late 20s to...
Well, Splash says he admires you for this.
Don't admire me for that. That was not great. That would have been less of a total mess, probably. And even though there was something happened around that time with a woman who was 39, there would be some thin years to come forward until my Malden person came into my life. So that was not a good thing. Believe me, I think about it. It's terrible. Yes, she told me to kiss her, and to do it, she threw caution to the wind, and I just said, like, it's. You should be disgusted by this, Alice. It's such
I'm disgusted that we're talking about it in 2025.
It just happened in 1990. Come on.
Hey, happy 4th. Thomas here.
Hey, Tom. Happy 4th.
I very much enjoyed hearing George on your show this morning. Back a lot of memories. I used to love him when he came on Fridays. And
Georgia.
Question you: is it true that George was the main driving force between the big, beautiful Bill? That's all I got. seconds.
Tom, that is correct. George is a quiet conservative. He doesn't want to ruffle feathers. But yeah, he is definitely. He is the
I
driving
like George a lot.
Yeah, why do you always say that? As if I was saying I don't like him. Of course I like him. He's known him forever. Yes, he's been a great guy. I've been to his house. He made me tripe, Alice, huh?
Wow.
You see?
Thank you so much for listening. If you are on Patreon, stay there. I do have more things I want to talk to Tom about. Get ready for him to lean his head on the microphone in exasperation when I talk to him, and for him to play me outro music like I'm going too long at the Oscars. But if you want to join that, that's patreon.com/burnbarrel. You also then get to be in the live chat every single day, and you get some extra content each week. Of course, if you like listening for free, burnbarrelpodcast.com.
C'est la vie.